Hi, I'm Stephen Obiefna, and the important aspect of Neil Hurley's work that I'd like to address today is the David and Goliath scene, or that's depicted in a lot of Charlie Chaplin's works. And the David and Goliath um, is a distinct feature that's found in a lot of Charlie Chaplin's works, and that is kind of just describing the underdog situation that Charlie Chaplin constantly finds himself in each and every one of his works. For those of you who don't know, David and Goliath is a biblical story in which a younger David, representing the Philistines, is going against a giant. And in this story, David, a small boy, takes a sling and shoots Goliath with it in the head and is eventually able to kill him. And so the way the article uses the David and Goliath feature that Charlie Chaplin seems to always exhibit is in just the underdog theme. The theme of the story, the theme of the David and Goliath story, is to show how the underdog can eventually win and lead his people to freedom. And so in this lecture, I'll be discussing how Charlie Chaplin is able to do that in his works. So the first example of this is in his work called Easy Street. In Easy Street, Charlie Chaplin falls in love with a girl whose father is a minister. And to break this down for you and to understand this, and after he falls in love with her, he then becomes a policeman. And at first that didn't make sense to me, but as the article goes on, it talks about how the minister was not a law-abiding citizen and was breaking the law. So Charlie becomes a policeman to, in a way, reprimand the father, to separate him, to remove him from getting in between Charlie and the girl that he falls in love with. What eventually happens, though, is Charlie is able to get the father on his side. That is, to get the father's love and approval for their relationship. And I found this significant, and the article also stated that this was significant in that even though Charlie was an underdog and the relationship that he was chasing, you could say, was the thing that he was trying to attain, the difference between the David and Goliath story and Charlie is that instead of Charlie completely killing the father or removing the father with his acquired position of being a police officer and and the father being a criminal, he instead gets the father on his side. And I personally found that more effective and more significant in that way, in the Charlie's ability to be able to do that in that work. The next example I'd like to give of the David and Goliath theme that Charlie so often exhibits is in his work called The Pilgrim. In The Pilgrim, Charlie is literally giving a sermon depicting the David and Goliath scene. And this sermon is so moving and so inspiring to the congregation that they love him. And why that's important is because, in a way, Charlie's dethroning the minister that's already at the church. Later on, and in this story, Charlie is a criminal that comes in and gives this sermon. So after that, as the story goes on, Charlie is talked about running towards the border of Mexico and being met by Mexican bandits. And so with the bandits on one side and the people chasing him from the United States, as someone, if I was in that position, or I found that, this was significant in that instead of, giving up or having nowhere to turn, he instead puts one foot on the Mexican side of the border and one foot on the United States side of the border and runs laterally right down on both sides as a way to get away. And the article is quoted in saying, "The little tramp always seemed to find a door in the walled up cubicle of society." And so he's walled up in a way. Like one wall on Mexico, he's not able to fully go onto that side, and another wall in the United States, and he seemingly has nowhere to run except to go in between the two walls. And I found that really inspiring, and another example of how the David and Goliath theme is continued to be shown in his works. The last thing that I would like to talk about, just a little bit in detail, is what Charlie is able to offer the audience. And what he's able to offer the audience and have the audience feel is evoking great pity. And the article is quoted to saying, "The moviegoer never ceases to admire the dignified manner through which Charlie is able to bear life's bruises." You know, whether Charlie is in a positive situation, a negative situation, he takes it all in stride, and even with the pity of the audience, he's still able to keep going. You know, things that would normally break somebody down and normally force someone to quit, he's able to keep going and bear those bruises of life without being broken. And those were the two things that I wanted to highlight from Neil Hurley's article about Charlie Chaplin's works. Thank you.